The answer is no. Don't be thinking for me, Zoe.
Like and subscribe. In 1917, Sir Arthur Balfour, then Foreign Secretary of Great Britain, wrote Lionel Walter Rothschild, who was a British banker, politician, and a Zionist leader, the Balfour Declaration, a declaration serving as a pledge of British support for a Jewish national home in Palestine, laying out the foundation for the State of Israel. Despite the declaration containing language that refers to the protection of non-Jewish people, thousands of Palestinians lost their homeland, while others who stayed were treated as second-class citizens. In 1948, 31 years after the Balfour Declaration, the State of Israel was founded and opening a deadly dispute over land that used to be the mandatory Palestine, that Palestinians and Israelis both claim. Since then, many attempts have been made to make a two-state solution, which would mean an independent Palestinian state and an Israeli state, dividing the land between the two groups. However, the intercommunal dispute has been ongoing for decades, creating political tension, military conflicts, and a genocidal loss of life. In early October 2023, war broke out between Israel and Hamas, the militant Islamist group that has controlled Gaza since 2006. Hamas fighters fired rockets into Israel and stormed southern Israeli cities and towns across the border of the Gaza Strip, killing more than 1,400 people in Israel and injuring hundreds of soldiers and civilians and taking dozens of hostages. In a swift response, more than 10,000 Palestinians have been killed in air and artillery strikes carried out by the Israeli military. Israeli troops have also massed along the Gaza boundary while Palestinians brace themselves for a major ground operation. In Brooklyn, New York, tens of thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters marched to free Palestine. No right or wrong question. What will it take for liberation of the Palestinian people?
Wow, I'm not a politician.
All the world leaders to change their stance and think about humanity before they think about politics or capitalism or money.
I was watching a TV program. The anchor, in a usual kind of way, was asking, why hasn't Palestine got its Nelson Mandela? Nelson Mandela was a small part of a global anti-apartheid movement. Palestine has an anti-apartheid movement, BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. I think that's always going to be a vital part of the liberation of Palestine. I hope events of the last couple of weeks make people realize that if you want a future for Palestine, that forms of divestment, forms of boycott, forms of resistance are always a central part of ending apartheid and bringing justice.
The fact that the Palestinian people can't be free in their own country is disgusting.
They have to live in our country.
Palestine is going to fight for freedom.
This means something to us, and it should mean something to you.
I just feel really bad as an American about what the IDF is doing, the killing of innocent children, especially the bombing of the hospital and the denial of it that we saw a few days ago.
A lot of accusations flying here. We want to take a closer look at this hospital bombing. The Israeli Defense Forces put out what they call evidence demonstrating that it was not Israeli airstrikes, but rather competing Islamic group that led to this explosion. So now let's do the flip side, because obviously Hamas says it wasn't Islamic Jihad, it was the Israelis.
They say that there was a warning that went out by the IDF right before the attack. And then finally, they point out that in the past, the IDF has characterized incidents and had to walk them back. Specifically, the killing of a Palestinian journalist who the IDF originally said was shot by Palestinian militia. Instead, it turned out that it was the IDF.
I've seen so many videos of Palestinian children being killed.
A woman, she was holding her son's skull in her hand, begging for God to just have mercy. People need to stop acting like what's happening isn't really happening.
We have to defeat the propaganda.
The Palestinians are being murdered, slaughtered, killed by what?
It's very obvious that who the oppressor is. I'm not going to name them. Everyone needs to figure it out. It's everybody's responsibility. This is why we're here today.
We need to listen to them. They're saying ceasefire. That's something that is internationally understood.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be so peaceful. I say they got to do what they got to do. Any means necessary, like Malcolm said.
In my opinion, the young generation of white, black, brown, whatever else there is, you're living at a time of extremism, a time of revolution.
The people united will never be defeated.
What the politicians are doing are using the news to pit us against each other when we should really be uniting to overthrow the state, all states. Starting with the United States, in my opinion, because they're responsible for all these wars, including the UK. Before it was America, it was the UK. They signed the Balfour Declaration.
Arthur Balfour, then Foreign Secretary of Britain, wrote in a public letter to a famous British Zionist, Lord Walter Rothschild, which read,
His Majesty's government views with favour the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people.
They gave weapons to Arabs, they gave weapons to Jews, and since 1948, we've been here ever since.
It starts with education because it's not a Jewish thing, it's a Zionist thing.
Zionist, a supporter of Zionism, a Jewish nationalist movement that has had its goal for the creation and support of a Jewish national state in Palestine, resulting in re-establishing Israel as the central location for Jewish identity.
It's going to take a lot to overcome the Zionist state, which is founded on racism and the expulsion of Palestinians, known as the Nakba, throwing Palestinians off their land, killing them, bombing them, torturing them, shooting them. It's an atrocity. It's genocide.
Zionism no good. I am Jewish, and it's most important for Jews to stand up because many horrible genocidal campaigns are being perpetrated in our name.
What the government should be doing is creating international law that is equal to all.
I remember as a first-gen American growing up, I was taught what the Pledge of Allegiance was, and I was so confused by it. For liberty and justice for all, I don't think that's the motto here. I don't think there's liberty and justice for all. I think it's liberty and justice for few, and it's the very, very white few.
Are Palestinian people subhuman?
Hello, Palestinians are decent, humanitarian people.
They're human beings as well. Give them their right.
Why are Israeli people so privileged, and why is the West backing them so much?
The U.S. is not only sending military aid to Israel, it's sending military aid to Iran too, who's also supporting Hamas.
I come to Israel with a single message. You're not alone. You're not alone.
People need to open their eyes.
People are opening their eyes, and thank God for the internet that people can see what's happening right now.
My mom is 80 years old. She's older than Israel.
For 48 years, they've been bombarding the Palestinian people.
She told me that her father had a neighbor who was Jewish.
Not only have they been breaking the Palestinian borders, but they also been attacking Lebanon, Syria.
In Palestine, Jewish, Christian, Muslims, they live freely, peacefully for hundreds of years before Israel existed.
We can live together as we did pre-48. We can all live together.
The people of Syria are suffering. The people of Lebanon are suffering.
The problem is Israel. It's not the Jewish, it's not the Christian, it's not the Muslims.
So not only are you cleansing out an ethnicity of the Palestinians, but you're also bombarding into other people's land.
We lived together peacefully for 100 years before Israel ever existed.
You got to end the occupation.
That's the root cause for all this chaos. That's the root cause for the bloodshed.
Time to stop this genocide.
Leave Palestine and then we could talk freedoms.
Give them their own land, but not in Palestine. Get them back to Britain.
That's the root cause for everything. They just want to sell weapons. They want to kill us. They want to divide us. But what is the root cause? The root cause is Israel.
It's only a matter of time before young Jews realize that the Zionist state does not have anything to offer them except for nationalism and more blood for land.
I have family in Israel, and they want nothing more than to see the Israeli regime gone. We need to get rid of Netanyahu.
I have faith that human beings are essentially good, but they've grown up with propaganda from the Zionist state.
I am inspired by the Jewish Voice for Peace and the many Jews in the U.S. and around the world who don't identify with Israel, who are fighting against the government of Israel and who are standing up for what I think are the Jewish humanistic values. Tikkun alone, heal the world.